Today's talk, meditation, reflection, sermon was inspired several years ago by the Hasidic rabbi who ordained me at the Cathedral at St. John the Divine in 1998. Now, it sounds an odd thing that a Hasidic rabbi would ordain someone who wasn't Hasidic, but the story was a story of humans. And that's why I wrote this. Rabbi Joseph Lieberman was raised in Hungary, home of Hasidism. He had many, many siblings, brothers and sisters, many. He also had a wife and a daughter who was maybe 4 years old at the time. The family knew that Nazis were going to move into Hungary. They were terribly afraid of what was going to happen to them. 2 or 3 of his siblings were able to find a way into England and escaped the scourge of the Holocaust. He found a position as a rabbi in a congregation here in New Jersey. He came here and served that congregation. And when World War II erupted and the United States joined in the war, he enlisted in the army as a chaplain. He served in the army throughout the war, all the time trying to stay in touch with his family, writing endless letters to Hungary, never hearing a word. For years after the war was over, he discovered that everyone in his family had died in Auschwitz. His 4-year-old daughter, his wife, 15 brothers and sisters. When he told this story towards the end of our training as interfaith ministers, I just lost it completely. I said, there's nothing. When I was in my teens, I was considering converting to Judaism. All my closest friends were Jewish. My boyfriend was Jewish. Didn't matter if my family was anti-Semitic. I didn't care. I wanted to be with me. In the end, I didn't do that, but I did not lose my affinity for Jewish teachings and traditions. And I've been to lots of services and different kinds of synagogues around the world. When I think of Rabbi Lieberman, I think about the day that I went to Auschwitz in his memory. Through those terrible gates, once with the words, Rabbi, cry. I was surrounded by a group of Israeli police officers who had gone to Poland as a kind of experiential reckoning with what had happened there. Krakow itself, which is the city just before you get out to Auschwitz, was never destroyed by the Germans. The story I was told when I was at the Schindler factory, where I also walked through, was that the Germans had spared Krakow because they wanted to turn it into a German city. It's a beautiful city historically. Its architecture is amazing. They protected it. Instead, they put 30,000 Polish people from that area into Auschwitz, along with the other. Walking through Auschwitz is a grueling experience. Most of them. One of the police officers in front fell on his knees. He couldn't get up. He was overcome by what he was feeling going into that gate. Fortunately, he had fellow officers who came up and lifted him, and I spoke with some of them afterwards. Recently, I visited someone I don't know very well, and I was asked what he was living on, and I saw on the wall in a large photograph, this size, of the gates to Auschwitz #2, more popularly known as Birkenau. That's where the bodies were all. That was such a horrifying place, I could only see people through the door and step out. When I saw the photograph, I said to the man who had it and was living on the wall, have you been there? No. Why would anyone put a photograph of a death gate on the wall of his living room unless he had a lot of issues? A lot of issues. He had offered to let me stay over in his house. I was taking my brother because he had a pull-out couch in the living room. And I thank God, Goddess, Spirit of Life, everyone that I decided not to before I saw that photograph. I could never have stayed in that room, having seen the photograph in the room. So, for me, the days of old, which we are now in the midst of, have always resonated very, very strongly in many different personal connections. This is a story from Rabbi William Sutton. A famous rabbi was missing from the place in the synagogue on the eve of the Day of Atonement, which is the fourth. The elders went out searching for him, and they found him caring for a sick child. Rabbi, they said, why aren't you in the synagogue? He said, do you see what I'm doing? But Rabbi, they said, it is your duty to be in the synagogue praying. The rabbi said, I am praying. Every act of kindness is a prayer. A prayer that walks, moves, breathes, and lives. At sundown on October 1st, the report will come to a close. And while the Day of Atonement will be over, and the recitation of penitential and confessional prayers completed around the world, the need for kindness and the making of amends never ends. The 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the days to follow. The days of self-examination, confession, making amends, and repentance. Not to relieve one's conscience, although that may happen, but to notice, to pay attention to God's judgments about one's future in the coming year, and on Yom Kippur to realize that one's fate for the year has been sealed. For an observant Jew, this period begins with the celebration of Rosh Hashanah, which was this past Monday night at sundown. It marked the beginning of the year. We are in the 5,000 something or less. The year in the Jewish calendar is now 5,786. It puts our little Western calendar in perspective, doesn't it? 5,786. It marks the celebration of the creation of the world. It is also a day of judgment, in which God begins determining people's fates for the coming year. This year, to recognize the shift, I observed the custom of Teshuvah on the night before Rosh Hashanah. That was last Sunday night. As the sun came down, I stood at my kitchen window and I took turns being aware of those behaviors I regretted in the last year. Letting go of them symbolically as great problems that I dropped into a large bowl. It took quite a while for the responses. I know it seemed like it. Every year, when the new year comes, not the Rosh Hashanah year, but the New Year of January, I meditate on the need for more compassion and patience for me. I know that I can snap. I said one day that my dragon was speaking when I was in church. And I've also told you that I was not ordained in a sainthood. I was ordained in a service. I see my service as bringing to you different expressions of spiritual practices and faiths in many different places, as ways to dive into yourselves, to consider your own life. And I used to do this with my daughter. We would stand there and hug and talk about forgiving each other and ourselves, about what it takes to be kind and good and real about our feelings. And when we were finished, we wished each other Shana Tova, a good day. And then we ate sliced chocolates dipped in honey to remind us of the sweetness of life. In 2004, the Universalist home time was celebrated actually on the day of Yom Kippur, Not this year. This year it's the 4th and 5th of October. When Danny Davidoff, who used to be the moderator of the UUOCC, got to speak, she talked about her Jewish childhood. She mentioned that what disturbed her about Yom Kippur as a young Jew was that many of the people she saw at the temple on Yom Kippur were never there the rest of the day. Does this sound familiar? I mean, Christian church going, you know, Sunday, maybe Easter, maybe Christmas, maybe. When I was a theological student and a very Christian Methodist student, I was horrified to hear that my family only went to church on Sundays. And she said, oh, we were Sunday Christians. And I thought, who do you think we are Sunday Christians? There's nothing wrong with being Sunday Christian. The interesting thing is that when I told members of my family that I was going to be ordained as an interfaith minister, they all started calling me and confessing their sins on the phone into my ear. And I go, wow, I'm now the mother confessor. Well, Danny Davidoff went on to say that if you are religious, you live your religion no matter what day of the week it is. Not just in temple days, not just on Yom Kippur, not just on Rosh Hashanah, not just for Sukkot feasts. No, you come to temple all the time. Now, the rabbi in the story understood this. Practicing kindness is an everyday religion. Even the Dalai Lama teaches this when he says, my religion is kindness. One of the most famous things he ever said, my religion is kindness. It's not a Sunday kind of way, it's a way of being and living. For us as practicing Unitarian Universalists, this means we remember our 8 principles when we breathe and speak and move. That our actions must manifest our core values. We must be mindful of our thoughts and our doings, with one another and with everyone who is in any way of them. This is an important characteristic of being a Unitarian Universalist. We do not set out to destroy others, to offend others, to attack each other in this congregation. What does this have to do with letting go? Everything. Everything, because we are constantly challenged to respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person. If we could really do that, we would actually be loving others, letting other people of equal value to our own. And how difficult that can be, especially if we don't agree about something, anything, significant things, insignificant things. Our minds are filled with what Buddhists call monkey chatter. My favorite phrase is monkey chatter all day long. This is why meditation is so helpful. You can let go of the monkey chatter in your mind. That maniac tailgating behind us on the parkway, that thoughtless parent, that candidate, that commentator on television. You know what I mean. How often do we find ourselves thinking and behaving as if we were good, superior, as if we were the only civilized people in the room? No, I think a lot of Unitarians are challenged right now. At the march, watching the game, in a conversation. But isn't it all simply a matter of agreement? When Elaine Silver was at the Lincroft Union congregation, before she came here to do her call service, she said, your opinion is none of my business. And I thought, what a great way to think about it. Somebody has an opinion about you, let it go. It's not their business, it's their problem, whatever it is. Your opinion is none of my business. And we are not alone in this. Each of us, regardless of everything else about us, struggles with the tension between what Carl Jung might call our higher and lower selves. With our shadow sides, where our more self-centered thoughts and drives lie in wait. How long has it been since you said or did something you regretted? An hour? A day? A week? A year? And how long has it been since we apologized for being unkind or even cruel to someone else? An hour, a week, a year, a minute. These are questions worth reviewing because our bodies store the emotions we will not acknowledge, because the suppression of our shadows usually leads to its sudden bright appearance in a crazed fashion on someone. And because suppression and repression are silent illness, not only do we hurt ourselves, others get hurt like us. The high holy days allow these spirits to air themselves and offer a way to heal ourselves. What do we as Unitarian and Universalists do with our imperfections, our shortcomings, our bad boy, bad girl behaviors? Do you, minister, Reverend Friend, or admitted in the book a long time ago called Heretics, Heretics Faith, that the words and practice of forgiveness and confession still have meaning for him? The theme, this is what he writes, the theme of those 10 days is really compassion and transformation. Forgiveness and confession are just opportunities to examine what you've been doing with your life. A way to acknowledge what you've done and then get on with it. You dwell on it for 10 days and then you start over. You don't carry it with you for the rest of the day. You acknowledge it, confess, make amends, and then you move on. Compassion, transformation, liberation. These are the results of the holy days. And then he tells this story, which I may have told you before in another context. 2 monks on a pilgrimage came to the ford of the river. There they saw a girl dressed in all her finery, obviously not knowing what to do, since the river was high and she did not want to spill her clothes. Without more ado, one of the monks took her on his back, carried her across and put her down on dry ground on the other side. Then the monks continued on their way. But after an hour, the other monks started complaining. Surely it is not right to touch a woman. It is against the commandments to have close contact with me. How could you go against the rules of our order? The monk who carried the girl walked alongside her and finally said, I set her down by the river in Noah. Why are you still carrying her? As Muir said, at a certain point, you have to stop dwelling on what might have been wrong. You have to make a sincere effort to set things right that can be set. Remembering, resolving, reconciling, confessing, and resisting are all steps in this process. And then compassion and transformation may occur, and as he says, we can move away from the way things are to the way things ought to. Compassion and transformation. This is what living life with religious integrity is all about. Tikkun olam is the Hebrew for the transformation and healing of the world. All the rest is about I know what is commented. It sounds so easy, and yet as proud animals we often find it very difficult to admit that we have hurt one another or been hurt ourselves. We harbor grudges and misrepresent ourselves. I have an English friend, a very popular woman, who one day said to me, I have a new word for it. And I thought, oh, what's happened to me? She said, grudge. And I said, did you just say what I think you said? And she said, yes. The person who holds onto grudges is a grudge. Now you heard me, right? It's an interesting thought, isn't it? And that is, in a way, exactly what people who are continually complaining and holding grudges around you do. But on and on with it, they just can't stop. Fritz Perls, another therapist, once said that in the struggle between pride and memory, pride usually wins. Think about that. Do you put a good spin on something that actually didn't deserve a good spin because your pride is keeping you in a holier place than maybe you ought to be? In Korea, unacknowledged hurt for which no amends have ever been made, this hurt is known as han, hatred. It is understood as both an individual hurt and a systemic hurt. When it is individual, it poisons personal relationships with feelings of grief and rage that are often manifested in mental illness and pathological behaviors, including addictions, unemployment, and violent crime. When it is systemic, as in cases of enslavement, genocide, political oppression, it leads to social chaos, collapse, revolutions, and multi-generational death, and we are sure to be seeing this in the future in many countries around the world that are now under siege. Harm itself can only be resolved with the acknowledgement of a wrong hurt, by the making of amends and the demonstrating sincere repentance. Unaddressed, it is ageless. Do you know who Lyle Lovett is? Lyle Lovett.
Yeah,
Country singer, was married to Julia Roberts for 2 seconds. I went to a concert that he gave, and he said something that I had never forgotten. So it's in this sermon, the way lots of things I haven't forgotten on. He tells us how he feels about hurt and betrayal in just one line. God forgives. But I don't. That's the difference between God and me. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between God and me. So it's not enough to admit it, as big a step as that would be. You have to do something with it. You have to make the admission. You have to do something that, as Muir would say, would set things right. John Wheat wrote a book called In Pursuit of Joy. Perhaps at one time we thought of forgiveness as some great virtue, some luxury that we could bestow upon others. But the longer we live, the more we see it as a simple necessity, something that we do for ourselves more than for others. Oprah Winfrey once said, would you rather be right, or would you rather have peace? Good words to think about when you're virtual. Something close. When we get to the place where we can let go of our hurt, the hurt that lies beneath anger, we can move forward. Sometimes we will then be able to reconcile with those who offended us, and sometimes we cannot. Perhaps because it wouldn't feel safe to get close to those people, or to let them get close to us. Forgiveness does not automatically mean reconciliation. No, it does not. And this is why some people are nervous about forgiving. They think you have to be friends again, they hug and kiss and dance together. No, you do not. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It means that we're giving something obsessive away that will destroy us if we let it consume us. We're letting it go. If we are going to transform life, ours and the world's from what it is into what it ought to be, we must be about the business of salvation and healing. To practice our Unitarian Universalist faith, we must live its principles not once a week or once in a while, but every day. We can be kind. We can take care of each other. It's a beautiful scenery. On the far side of being a feeling or inflicting hurt lies forgiveness. It requires no passport to enter, only the courage to journey into your own heart. I am praying, said the rabbi. Every act of kindness is a prayer that walks and moves and breathes and lives. The traditional greeting on the Day of Atonement, which will be October 1st through October 2nd, is this: Na Katima Tova, which means, may you be sealed for a good year. May it be so for each of you this year and every year, to a good year, life, and harmony.